me that you understand it. Don't tell me that I'm too demanding. I need you to show me you're taking this too slowly. Don't tell me that you're what I need, no. I believe that when I see so. Time for you to show me. Hush your lips, stop your
We're going to be talking about systems, and how to create a business that doesn't break. And I'm very, very excited to be bringing in Waleed Nasruddin. Yes, we are related, if some of you are wondering. But the reason why Waleed, he's going to provide so much value to you today. And let me tell you why. He has a very unique perspective. So Waleed is not only an entrepreneur, okay, he has founded a company called Charity Lives, which works with organizations and companies around the US. He is a mentor for upcoming entrepreneurs in Southern California, but he's also worked for a number of Fortune 500 companies. He's worked on Wall Street, Merrill Lynch, the Mattel toy company, and many other million-dollar companies where he has infused new programming and brought in what we call entrepreneurship. So if anyone's familiar with entrepreneurship, it's when you're an entrepreneur in a corporate environment, okay? Waleed has a really unique perspective in building a business and entrepreneur because he's not only done it as an individual, but he's also built projects and things within Fortune 500 companies. So he's more system-based, which a lot of us need here. And that's why I wanted to bring him in today.
Can someone confirm that they see the slideshow?
We can see it. Perfect. We can see it. Awesome.
Yeah, as Nada mentioned, I'm her brother. Always loved what she's doing. Very inspired. So glad I could. This is actually going to be my first virtual conference that I've ever done. So happy that I could do it on my sister's business. So basically what I want to talk about today is a gap that I see in the way that people approach business and life. Basically, it's how they plan, which is obviously the first step of anything. So planning is fundamental, but because it's fundamental, it's often considered common sense, so it's kind of overlooked, it's unappreciated. So basically what I wanted to start off with is a context on the title of the slide. So as someone who consults, advises, invests, I spend a lot of time listening to a lot of people pitch and talk about business ideas and goals. And they're all super passionate about it. They're super motivated. They come up with amazing ideas and visions. But whenever they finish, I always respond, okay, what's the plan? And I can tell you, I can count on on one hand, the number of times I've gotten a clear laid out synopsis of what the business is about and how it operates. So basically what you're looking for is what is the goal and what does that look like? An important part of planning is to first bring clarity to your goals so you can then decide on the best approach to accomplish those goals rather than wasting time and resources and figuring it as it comes along. So today, what I really want to do is just bring it back to basics and give some understanding and more so a reminder of the benefits of planning and some tips on how to set yourself up for success while driving towards those goals. So the backbone of success is hard work, determination, good planning, and perseverance. This is a quote from Mia Hamm. I'm not sure if you guys know who Mia Hamm is, but she's largely considered the best female soccer player in history, two-time Olympic gold medalist, two-time FIFA Women's World Cup champion. Now, I was surprised by this quote mainly because it's an athlete, right? All athletes always talk about hard work and determination, but she didn't say practice, she said good planning, which is a very important distinction. So a lot of the speeches you hear, a lot of the conferences you go to, a lot of the motivational speakers and YouTubers, they all like to talk about hard work, determination, grind, perseverance. That's the sexy stuff where you can tell cool stories and motivate people and inspire people. But the truth is, there's no speaker that could teach you those traits. There's no book or course on work ethic, right? Those are developments of character that are developed as you live your life and you go through whatever it is you go through to test that part of you. But good planning, that can be taught. That's something you can learn easily. You can apply immediately to building your business, solving problems, making better decisions in your relationship, and just making a better life. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first, I'm going to define planning. Now, when I say planning capital P. which is, it's a unique concept, but it's much in the same way you would know the difference between love lowercase l and love uppercase L. I have the same intention when I say planning with a capital P. It emphasizes a more meta conceptual word that encompasses a greater meaning. So when I say planning capital P, I'm also including lower level planning, strategies, processes, systems. It's an all-encompassing word. So a definition to remember planning is simply it's a proposal to accomplish a goal. So now why is planning important? Planning is important, so I have 3 bullet points here. Better understanding of the big picture. When you have a better understanding of the big picture, you're putting yourself in a better position to make better decisions that closely align to whatever that is, that vision or goal you might have. There's no product or employee, business or person that can be successful in isolation, right? There's a synergy to everything, and to improve so is going to do so on multiple levels and multiple channels, right? There's a reason Rise Up For You has 6 pillars, right? Because the way your relationship goes could affect how your work goes, could affect your finances, could affect your health. Everything aligns with each other and affects each other. So to have a big picture view of something as you go into it gives you a better chance of success. Real impact by solving real problems. When you approach something with a plan, you're doing so directionally and intentionally, right? You're deciding what areas to improve. And by doing so, you're offering real direct value in addition to wasting time and resources, just trying to figure things out as you go along. And typically the planning process itself will help identify potential risks that you didn't even know you had, right? They were hiding in the background. And then adaptation and continuous improvement. Planning is a continuous practice. It's not a one and done kind of thing. There's a constant review and updating. The great thing about proper planning is that it's dynamic enough that it allows for guidelines and structure when that's needed. So you stay on focus and you stay on goal. But there's also contingency planning where as the environment and intentions change, you change as well, right? A good plan is always up to date. Now there's obviously a lot more points that could be made, but the 3 points on the slide should kind of give an obvious story of why planning would set you up for a better chance of success in whatever you're trying to accomplish, right? If you have a clear goal, if you have a clear vision and focus, and you're taking a real action and solving real problems continuously and consistently improving and becoming better, I mean, that sounds like a plan to set yourself up for success. So what is planning about is essentially setting yourself up for success. So with that, I want to share with you guys my own kind of personal tool. I call it the CAT method, only because I haven't come up with anything more clever. So if you guys think of anything better, DM me. And so there's 3 parts of the CAT method. It's define, develop, and serve. So take a quick.
So Waleed, while you're taking a sip, I just wanted to ask a quick question, if you don't mind. What's your thought on like SWOT analysis, for example, like doing a SWOT analysis for your own business?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's a good way of, part of planning is, I mean, there's countless numbers of processes and procedures to go through, but SWOT analysis is a good sort of brainstorming tool. It works good in companies, especially if you have a team where you get multiple feedback on what you think your threats and your strengths and stuff are. It's also good to kind of like align strategically with the business. So like SWOT analysis is probably good as something if you're taking it to like a leadership team, right? Because they understand what the framework, you understand the framework, so you're automatically speaking on the same language. And so you basically go to them with, and the benefit of SWOT analysis is it's a lot of people have goals, but they don't have plans. A lot of people have problems, but they don't have solutions. So SWOT analysis kind of, because you're talking about strengths and weaknesses and opportunities, you're kind of forcing all of that into one. So you're talking about problems, but you're also setting yourself up for what are the solutions to those problems. So yeah, I think SWOT analysis is a great tool.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So, so the way I work is I tend to make formulas that represent everything that I do. And I'm a big believer in like doing everything in 3s. I'm also a big patterns guy. So I tend to see patterns very quickly, which is why I have an affinity for planning, right? Because the combination of planning and pattern recognition sometimes means you can predict the future. So I noticed a while ago that almost every project I consulted on, every problem I was asked to solve, the resulting issue was almost always a neglect or deficiency of one of these three areas: define, develop, or serve. I also have a lot of successful friends. I go to a lot of conferences that I mentioned. I host a small entrepreneur club. We invite speakers to share success stories. And every time someone would deliver a message or a key to success or a golden nugget, that message also always typically fell into one of these three groups. So I ended up making this CAP method, which is basically a holistic framework as you approach planning. So I'll go through each point briefly. So define, and I know we have a pretty diverse group of people that follow Rise Up For You. So I have my little three friends on the screen that are helping me. I have the executive, I have the entrepreneur, and then I have the young adult that is into personal development. So for our first pillar, define, to give some context, if we were talking about language, the executive would talk about their company mission, right? The entrepreneur would talk about their why, and the self-development guy would talk about finding his purpose. Now, this pillar is typically the largest offense that I find with entrepreneurs and personal development clients. It's also rampant in big businesses, but big businesses, you tend to have to report to someone. So not having, clear vision or clear plan doesn't tend to last very long. But when I talk to entrepreneurs and personal development people, they tend to be very vague on their outlook. So the number of times I've had a client that I'll ask, like, what's their goal? And they respond, like, I want to grow my business. I want to make more money. I want to get more customers. Like, the number of times I get that as an answer is staggering. And that's not a real answer. So the first thing we want to do is we want to define, how much money is the business currently making? Are we profitable? Is our growth a function of expansion, or are we attempting to become profitable? How much should we grow? What can our infrastructure allow us to grow? How many customers do we support now? Are they happy? How many customers do we want to gain? Right? This is all part of the questioning that defines a goal. Because if you have vague goals, you're going to have a vague plan, you're not setting yourself up for success. So the clearer your goals are, then you can decide what the strategies and plans are, and then you go in. The answer to any of these questions will completely change the strategy and steps you take to accomplish that. One different answer will completely change everything. Right? So you want to make sure you invest in clarifying what it is you're trying to do before you invest in time and resources to try and make things happen that you don't know what you're looking for. So what defining is also about who are you, right? Who are we? What do we stand for? What is the goal, and what does that look like? I read a book back in the day called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And he basically says clarity breeds mastery, and the goals you set drive the actions you'll take. With defining, clarity is key. That's what it is. The litmus test I use to whether or not you have to define something is if you could ask someone a question and ask two different people and get two different answers, it needs to be defined. Right? If I ask someone what success is and ask another person, I'm going to get two different answers. If I ask two executives, what's our growth rate for next year, I could probably get two different answers. So anytime someone gives two different answers, you should define it. You should always make sure that you have a consensus and agreement across the board on what you're trying to do. So the second one is develop. This is the heavy lifting part, right? This is the can take years part. This is everybody knows. This is the hard work part. Everybody knows this. They're just either bad at it or they just recognize that it's tough, right? This in corporate speak is best practices in becoming an industry leader. For the entrepreneur, this is mastering your craft, right? For the personal development person, this is becoming your best self, right? This is the work you put in to accomplish the goals that were laid out in the define stage, right? This is education, development, strategies. This is the building portion of planning. If this were a book, define would be the synopsis laying out the character and the roles. Development would be the actual story and writing the script. And this is all encompassing. Includes the SWOT analysis, all the different tactics, all the different strategies, all the different courses. This kind of all falls in the development part. And then, of course, last but not least is serve. Right? The executive might say they have a customer first mission. The entrepreneur might say they're leading with value. The self-development guy might say that he loves life and just wants to pay it forward. Right? Service is about understanding there's a bigger picture and a bigger purpose to both you, the individual, and the work you're doing. Right? So service is about leading with love and value. It's about the intention over expectation. It's about sharing. It's about giving more than you take. And essentially, it's about making everything you touch a little better than you found it. And that's essentially the CAP method. Again, define, develop, service. It's a simplistic framework to understand the importance and necessity of planning. And hopefully it gives you a little help to be able to take first steps to create a better plan, which obviously leads to better decisions and in turn, better life. That's all I have there.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, let's, Willie, can we let me remove it from the sharing and we're gonna go into some questions here. Okay, so I have a couple questions for you, Willie, but I also obviously want to open it up to anybody else that has questions as well. The thing that I really love about what you say, which we don't always hear, okay, is really, really defining on a micro level what you want. So let me ask everybody that's here, have you done that? So when you're building your business, what does success mean? How do we know that we got to success? How do we know that we built a profitable business, right? What does that mean to build your business and grow it? So what do you want to do within the next 3 months? How much money do you want to have in the account? How many clients do you want to have? How much profit do you want to make? And very little do we micro that down. So I love that you touched on that perspective. And why do you think that's not, like, why do you think that doesn't happen as much? Because I know for me, in the very, very beginning, I didn't do that either. I just said, oh, I want to build a company. Well, what does that mean? Well, I want to be profitable. Well, what does that mean? So why do you think that's the biggest challenge or a challenge?
I think, so not to get too woo-woo out of it, I think just by our human nature, we're driven more by motivation than we are practicality. And so there's a lot of, like, especially in the entrepreneur world, it's become, entrepreneur speak has become almost like politics speak, right? Like there's a lot of promise before the process. There's a lot of promise before the plan. So everybody gets like inspired by the promise of like what they're gonna get, but they don't actually put a plan to get to it. And anybody who's been like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Anybody who's been correct on that probably didn't live a good life. Like where I'm at now, I would have never thought I would have been there 5 years ago, right? But part of the planning also is understanding that you don't know everything. But then there's also a function of where you're trying to get into it and you don't want to admit that, right? No one wants to go into a business and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to work for myself, but I'm going to be I'm going to be the industry leader, but I don't really know what I'm doing, right? So when you ask someone like, they're starting a graphic design company. If a person wants to start a graphic design company, there's a big difference between like, I want to be a graphic designer and make enough money to pay my bills and do this as a living, versus I want to start a graphic design firm where I hire employees, versus I want to start a franchise. Like, is this something you're trying to leave behind your kids or sell off in a few years? Or is this just a way to make money and living so you can do something else? Like, everything takes a different shape. You could start a store and that could be, is that a boutique store? Is that a department store? Is that a franchise? Right? There's so many ways of looking at things. And sometimes you have in your head what you're going to do, but you don't understand that someone, like it's one of those loss of translation things. I think in my head, I'm thinking about something and I'm just going to assume you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking, but you're not, right? So it's part of that. And then it's part of just like the not knowing, the being motivated to do a plan and wanting to get it done, but not really putting the work and the groundwork to like figure out that pathway.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I actually want to, let's do this really fast. So for those of you that are here in the chat, let's answer that question that Willie talked about. Do you want it to just be you and, when you pass on it falls? Do you want it to be a team of people? Do you want it to be a corporation? For those of you that are building your business, what does that mean? Is it just you as a solopreneur? Do you want to have a team? That's a really interesting question. So let's see what we have in the chat. So drop that in the chat, and some of you might not have thought about it. So that's a really, really great question. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Waleed? Doesn't look like, I always say when there's no questions, that mean we were so clear. I would like it ultimately to be something that supports me in my but I don't know how or what it looks like yet. So good question, Kathleen, is how big do you want it to be? Do you just want it to be you and it can sustain you in your livelihood? Carla, you put definitely that you want a team. Okay. Gaeta put, I want to leave a legacy for my kids and build an amazing team one day. Okay, so it's going to be bigger than just you as the solopreneur. So really, really awesome. Thank you, Walid, for that. Walid, do you have, before I ask the last question, how do we find you? How do we reach out to you? I know that you're definitely on LinkedIn. So Mariah, if you can grab Walid's LinkedIn and put that in the chat and people can find them. And then of course, we'll also add some other stuff, but anything else that you want to share with us, Walid?
No. I mean, I think that's it. Yeah, like LinkedIn. I'm more active on IG, so if I want to message, that's probably the best place. But
okay.